Good morning. Welcome. How's everybody doing? My name is Angela. Today is Saturday, January 31st. Finally, the 87 days of January come to a close today. I could not be happier because I just feel like I have been trapped in my apartment. I can't go for a walk. I can't casually go out and run errands. Heidi, the Sheltie, she's also feeling very cooped up. It's honestly starting to get to me more than it has in a really long time. And I think it's just because this has been so much colder than any winter we've had for the last few years. And it's starting to get to me. So this is my way of saying I'm so glad it's coming to a close. So now it's February. We're on to spring. I just pray that we get a nice warm spring because I can't handle this anymore. This is how much is getting to me. I mean, I love talking about the weather, but this is how much the cold is getting to me, far more than it has in the past. So there's that. Anyways, welcome. Nobody cares. I live in St. Paul, Minnesota, where we are traditionally very cold in the winter. And I mean, we've had winters here the last few years in particular. It just hasn't been that cold or that snowy. So I don't know. This is just hitting especially hard. It's also because I work from home. It has to be because I work from home. Can we talk about the pros and cons of working from home? Because I actually think that this is a pretty big deal in tech, right? During COVID, we all worked from home. So this is interesting. Before COVID, where I worked at the University of St. Thomas, very strict rule, especially in our department, there is no working from home under any circumstances. Well, any circumstances changed to, this is an example, in 2018, I had to have surgery on both of my ankles, but I had those surgeries like weeks apart. And both times I was allowed to work from home for about a week or 10 days, something like that, while I was recovering before I actually went back to work. So that was considered a really special set of circumstances. Other than that, you were expected to be in the office. I remember when I started that job, because I lived clear across town in the Minneapolis suburbs, but the University of St. Thomas is all the way over on the other side of St. Paul. And it was like a 30 or 40-minute drive. We had bad weather one day. It was snowing. And I called my boss at the time, this guy Pete, who I adored. And I was like, I just don't feel comfortable driving to St. Paul in the snow. And I don't think anybody should have to risk driving in bad conditions like that for their job. I said, can I just work from home? And he said, no, you can't. Because our vice president at the time had a rule. There is no working from home. And boy, did that change during COVID. During COVID, my entire team and then our entire department was work from home. And we never went back to campus after 2020. So after 2 years of going to campus, and eventually I moved to St. Paul so I could be close to campus because I'm not from St. Paul originally. I'm here specifically because of that job. But after 2020, we were all work from home. We never went back to campus. In fact, the building that we worked in got torn down because they built a different building and they didn't have any room for us. So, yeah, it's wild how things have changed. And now I'm self-employed and I do YouTube and I'm a freelancer, consultant, whatever you want to call me. I miss having a place to go. And I know now why that's important. Because things like a month of bad weather, it's rough to not feel like you can really get out, even just get out and run errands. I feel like I have to take into account everything. Like, how cold is it? Is it going to snow today? Twice already this year, I went out to run errands in the afternoon. I wasn't paying attention to the weather. And both times I ended up having to drive home in a snowstorm. Really dangerous and slippery. It's so stressful. Yeah. So this is, I think, one of the downsides to working from home. And if you aspire to have a life in tech or in anything where you work from home, I encourage you to find ways to get out and interact with other people. This is not healthy. This is not healthy. And I thank God that I still have family that's healthy, that I can get out. And I go to Costco every 2 weeks with my dad. I drive out to the suburbs to spend time with my parents. This is why I don't order things online anymore. I mean, well, I have some issues with overconsumption that we don't need to get into here, but I don't order online anymore. And I get up and I go to the store and I buy things because I need to walk around other people. I need to have small talk with the cashiers at Target and Walmart. I need this. There's memes on Instagram, which I think are so funny, about people psyching themselves up to go to Trader Joe's because the cashiers at Trader Joe's are so it can almost feel invasive, right? So intrusive, how many personal questions they ask or what that can feel like. I find myself now like looking forward to it because I'm like, oh, the cashier at Trader Joe's is going to ask me how I am. They're going to ask me what I have planned for the rest of the day. They're going to ask me what I'm going to do with all of this delicious Trader Joe's food that I'm buying. Like, what am I planning to do with it? And I can't wait to tell them because they act so much like they care. I just can't tell you how important this is. I just savor those moments. And when I find myself just being trapped by bad weather and dangerous driving conditions, the older I get, the more it gets to me. Sorry if you don't want to know this, but honestly, these are just the things that are on my mind. I also have to tell you, even though this is it's on the surface, this is like kind of a one-way thing. The fact that I go live 2 or 4 days a week is so impactful that I sit here and talk and I get this instant feedback in the chat, regardless of what it is that we're working on. Those things help me so much not feel like I'm just sitting by myself all day. So even if there's 4 people or 40 people or 400 people, anybody that's here hanging out with me, talking about front end, following along on this journey, building in public, I just appreciate all of you so much. So, all right, well, deep thoughts for this day. Deep thoughts by Angela. Rahul is here if you're not all scared and haven't all logged off yet. Rahul from Nepal is here. Welcome, Rahul. No one is here. Hello with 4 exclamation points. I'm so glad that you're here, no one. Go Elmo, formerly Go Elmo Go, currently Malik Robinson, our friend from Florida. Good advice, face-to-face connections and interactions are important. Agreed. So they are precious. That's how I look at them, is they are precious. And you know, I do think it ties back nicely to the questions that I get a lot about freelancing and finding clients. I know I've brought this up before. I think it's worth mentioning again. If you have a desire to be a freelancer or a contractor or, work with small businesses, agencies, things like that, and you're not sure how to find clients, get out into your community and talk to people. Bring your dog to the dog park. Go to restaurants. Go to coffee shops. Chat with people, make small talk with people. That can be incredibly difficult. I'm like a fairly personable person, and the older I get, the easier it gets because I've just been in so many situations. I've been at so many new jobs, met so many new people. Even at my age, it still is exhausting and scary, but I'm always like so pleased with myself. I'm like, you did it. You went someplace new and you talked to strangers. You did it. And you acted like a normal human being. Like, pat yourself on the back. You did it. The older I get, the easier it gets. And the benefit of those things are that small businesses and the owners of agencies are always, I think they are going to care more that they can trust you and that you are credible and that you can act like a normal human being than what your actual skills are as a developer. Because when they see people showing up and being authentic and sincere and knowing how to engage and having a conversation and having good communication, those are the things that they really, really care about. I've never once had a small business ask me, why do you only use vanilla? Couldn't you use React for this? They don't give a shit. They don't even know what React is. They don't even know what JavaScript is. That's my job to know those things, not theirs. They just want to see somebody who can show up and have a conversation, and they want to be reasonably assured you're not going to rip them off. So that's that. I think this does tie back to that. Monique is here. Welcome. Greetings, Monique. We're happy to have you. Yes, do me a favor. Go ahead and like the stream if you haven't already. Helps push it out to more people who might be interested in this type of content. Ooh, one moment, please. Hold, please. That's good coffee. Where was I? Yes, do me a favor. Like the video if you haven't already. It helps the algorithm, helps push it out to more people who might be interested in this type of content. We are growing slowly but steadily, let me tell you. Increasing to streaming 4 days a week has done wonders for my watch time, which I was really, really struggling with. So subs are on the rise, watch time is on the rise. Who wouldn't love waking up one day and seeing like thousands of new subscribers? I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think that, and I've said before, I don't think YouTube really knows what to do with me. I think YouTube knows exactly what to do with me. They're just not getting enough of me, if you can believe that. I think YouTube wanted to see me streaming more. And if I ever get caught up, which I think I will this spring, on the hundreds of hours of editing that I'm behind on, because I kind of took a step away over like the end of November and December, I think I'll see even more growth. So yeah, we're figuring it out. So. And no one says, I'm from a developing country, so to find good clients, I have to look online in developed countries. I think that that's a very good point, and thank you for reminding me that not everybody lives in the West. My advice to you is please don't be afraid to still have face-to-face conversations with people online. I really, really think that that's important. I also think that that could be something that really sets you apart, because I know that there are freelancers and contractors who will only work via email and chat. I know it because they are plainly saying that that's the only way they will communicate with people, and I think that that is a mistake. I think you need to have face-to-face communication with people. I think it's really important. It reassures people that you are a real human being, especially small business owners or any business owner that is going to pay you tens of thousands of dollars for your services. You have a duty to present yourself as somebody who is credible and who isn't going to rip them off. You do. You do. And I think that if you are good at working on your communication skills, you're willing to get on camera and answer questions and have conversations, I think you will be more successful. This is my personal opinion. And again, I can only share what my own experience has been and what my own thoughts are. If you have a different experience, please let me know. But for people who ask me for advice about those things, that is always the advice that I'm going to give you. Because the people who I met out in my community didn't know anything about writing code or programming or the particular approach that I have on any given project. That's why they're hiring me. They don't know about those things. So whether you're vanilla, whether you use React, whether you use Tailwind, literally does not matter if your goal is to be a freelancer and to bring in new clients. because they have no idea what any of those things are. But if you can get on a call and explain your rationale and talk through a process and explain why your approach is better and why you've thought this through, that's how you win business. So there's that. All right. Well, I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense, at least why I take that position. So, and of course, if you have a different experience, I'm always ready to hear what other people's experiences are. The problem is that I don't know if it's a problem. It's just that I haven't quite run into it yet. I have people asking the question, how do you find clients? I don't have people saying to me, oh, here's how I found my clients. I'm not getting any of that yet. And it's probably because I'm doing something that is the type of content I do is like very beginner focused, right? I recognize that I'm probably catching a lot of people at the beginning of their career, even though I think my content would still be good for somebody who's an experienced developer who has a desire to understand front end a bit better. I think, though, that I'm really just catching people at the beginning of their career. So I'm waiting, though. Believe me, I'm waiting for people to be like, actually, I've been freelancing for a long time, and this is the approach that I use, and this works just fine for me. Wonderful. I would love to hear it. I guess I can only talk about my own experience, right? And Malik says, my first video interview was really interesting. I felt a lot more comfortable talking about my work when I was talking to someone because it made it easier for me to read their reactions to my stuff. Body language. Body language. How many times how many times have you been at a party or a gathering or a function where you were just talking to somebody, you didn't have any idea what they were really actually talking about, but you could keep the conversation going just by making eye contact and doing the, yeah, mm-hmm, yeah. Body language. That's what that is. So it's a good point. It's important, in my opinion. So, but I'm from a different generation also. I wasn't raised on the internet. The internet did not, well, I mean, it existed. I had never even heard the word internet when I graduated from high school in the 90s. So I feel like I'm kind of learning about all of this stuff. Why didn't you open? Hang on. I think you should have opened over here. I learned about all these things as an adult. I use the word adult loosely. Technically, my age makes me an adult, but I think my emotional intelligence probably puts me somewhere around college sophomore. So, yeah, so there's that. Okay. Well, nobody's telling me to stop talking yet, so you must not mind when I go off on these little tangents. Okay, here we are. We are working on this project, which I think is going swimmingly. I'm really enjoying it. This is called Scenic. It's something that I designed when I was living in San Diego in 2014, when I had my first job as a developer, and I was really trying to find my own style. I was also a WordPress developer, so a lot of what I was doing back then was kind of focused on the sort of the template or the theme structure of a WordPress theme. So this has let's see here. So this is a good example of where my mind was back then. Home, blog, page, and contact. In WordPress, you definitely want to have a unique home page. You also want to have a blog layout, a specific type of page layout. Those are two very specific things. Pages have a flat hierarchy, and blogs are considered to have a more like what's the word that we used to use? I can't remember the name for it. There were terms to describe it. I think it's like pages would be more evergreen content, so it wouldn't have like a date necessarily associated with it. Blogs are like timely content, right? Like there's a date, something, you can kind of see it here. There's like a date associated with it. And it also, WordPress is a last in, first out structure, right? So the last thing in is the first thing you see. And that's why blogs are important. And then really any page you should be able to take and put in a contact form. And this is a pretty good example here. We worked on the contact form on Thursday, and I think things turned out really well. We had a lot of fun on Thursday, actually. We spent quite a bit of time troubleshooting using the backdrop filter blur. So we did backdrop filter. Hang on. Let's find this here. Because what I figured out is that there's more than one way to do this. So we actually did it to the hero. Yeah. So there's two heroes. There's like the main hero, which is the home page. And then we have this inner page hero that we want to sit behind the content. And I kind of decided the best way to do that was to absolutely position it, take it out of the flow, and then let the content naturally sit over top of it. And so we spent a lot of time figuring out like, what's the best way to blur this image? And we took a couple different approaches. And what we ended up doing, and this was thanks to Rahul, who suggested we use a pseudo class, it's actually a pseudo element, because when you use before or after, those are just two of several pseudo elements. This actually creates a child in this container. So this is now a child of figure. It actually adds something to the DOM. You have to have this content property, even if it's empty, you have to have it. But once you put in content, after will literally add an element to the DOM. And then we were able to use this to put the backdrop filter on. And it worked really, really well with all the things that we tried. And I think this was like the third thing that we landed on. But we also did some pretty interesting troubleshooting to see how these things actually really worked. So if you want to watch that process, it was actually a lot of fun on Thursday. It was actually a lot of fun. Yeah, so you guys can go and let me see here. You guys can go look at that. I think you would enjoy it if you enjoy seeing that type of troubleshooting. So here's what we landed on. We do need to finish styling this page. We also need to finish making this page responsive. We kind of screwed up the form here, which is fine because I added additional form styles here and that impacted this, which is completely fine. We're going to tighten all that stuff up today. And then if we have time today, we will finish making the header responsive. We kind of already have made the header responsive. We just need to add the JavaScript so we can get this click event to open the drawer. Everything else is in place for the header though. So, and no one says, I totally agree. After gaining some experience, communication skills and ability to understand others are equally important to technical skills, and my first client by reference and luck. Yeah, don't underestimate the power of being in the right place at the right time. Truly. I think, I see so many people in the chat and I just think to myself, wow, how can you guys not be absolute smashing successes. I think about the type of person that you have to be to go hang out in the chat of a front-end developer who's building UIs. Forget about what I'm actually doing or what frameworks, libraries, vanilla. Forget about that stuff. I just think about like where you're at emotionally and mentally to even want to sit in a space like this. It says so much about you guys as humans and how seriously you take the process and how into it you are. And I'm just like so proud of all of you. And I just think to myself, you can't not be successful. It would be impossible for you guys to not be successful. I really believe that. So I don't know. I just think you guys are all killing it. I'm so proud of you. So there's that. Okay, let's keep going. I love you guys. You're the best. Okay. So the last thing that we need to style here are these little asides. And then once we sort of structurally have our stuff on our page, let's go ahead and just tighten up all of our responsiveness on this page, and then we'll hop back over and see if we can get the click event in for our mobile header. And then I think tomorrow we should be able to, we should have everything in place for this page. This should be absolutely nothing to get this done. And then we're going to spend some time really working on this blog, right? And we also had a little QA list, a little wish list of things that we were going to try to sneak into this project that aren't necessarily represented in the mock-ups. So, okay. Where are we here? So we've got these asides. And I think we're going to need to adjust this markup a little bit, which is perfectly fine. And also let's make sure that all of our heroes, oh, and this is hang on, we're on the wrong page here. This is the home page. Let's find our contact page. There we go. I think that we want to make sure that all of the heroes get the blur, right? So we'll add, if we don't get to that today, we can make sure that we add that to our QA list. So, okay, here's our asides. So I think that this needs a wrap. But I think we do need an extra div. So here's our asides wrap. So that should pull that in now. Here's the contact. And then let's go ahead, we'll just call this the asides. So the asides, I think, has a gray background, right? Yep, it does. And we have to make sure that we still have this section right here that's white. So I'm not sure how that's going to work. We're going to find out together. Oh, good. We do still have cool. That padding creates this extra white. Okay, so that's good. So let's give this some padding. I'm going to give this 3 rems. So actually, we could just give this the section class because all of that padding is defined. But we can't actually use the section element because there's no heading. But that's why we use classes, right? So now And the border is as wide as the content area. So that's cool. I think we can use grid to lay this out, and we've got a lot of gap here. So we don't have to like pull in this border. This I think this is an H2, can still be a display block, which is what it is by default. It's a block level element. Up here, we had to make this display inline block because the border did not extend all the way to the edges. So we did display inline block, and then we added a little bit of padding. But for this, the border clearly extends all the way to the edge of the container. So now this is the aside. Well, actually, we're going to want to put grid on the asides wrap. So we'll say display grid, grid, template columns, repeat 3, 1 FR, and we need to give this some pretty generous gap, like maybe 4 rems, not sure. Oh yeah, actually even more. Yeah. And then interestingly, I think we should send, well, I was clearly doing justify. Why was I doing that? I don't know. So let's just say, probably want to do center. I hate center aligning things because it's so lazy. So let's just do aside, the aside paragraph, I don't know. Text align. We'll try justify. I mean, that's what the mockup says, right? Ugh, stop, Angela. No. So ugly. I guess we're gonna center. So in that case, we should just center everything. Just center the whole aside. Yeah, I guess that's fine. Okay. And then let's take care of these H2s. These are pretty big. Let's see, do we have any other clamp styles that we can borrow just to keep things consistent? I think that's a little too big. What about this? I think this is a good starting point, but I don't think it's big enough. I think this could be a little bigger. Maybe 3 rems. Yeah, I like that. Maybe 2.5. I like that too. So what would this be? And I would want this to be a little bigger on mobile. Okay, switches to 3. That's actually, that's pretty good. I like that. Should it be a little? I feel like it maybe could be a little bigger on mobile. I don't know. Well, let's take care of this grid. We'll check and see what it actually looks like stacked. So what's our breakpoint, do we think? Here's 1024. I mean, I feel like this kind of holds up till 960. It's also got, these paragraphs have some, so we've got some gap, and then we've got a little margin. I think that's okay. Oh yeah, I like that. I think that looks good. So let's get that border in there. So we've got a border here. And we'll just say 1 pixel solid, and we'll make it dark gray. Is that what we did with the last one? I don't remember. And then, yeah, it's going to need some padding also on the bottom. I think the border is a little harsh. So we've got dark gray, light gray, medium gray, which you can't really see. I don't have anything else here. So this is 667. This is F2 EA. I feel like we should do something like something like that. Yeah, I like that. So it's like distinct but still a little subtle. So let's add that here. Like so we've got light gray, medium gray, dark gray. How about just gray? I like it. there's way more padding here, so we can add a little extra padding, especially since we have a lot of space here. I think that that is just fine. We have a lot of padding down here. Let me scroll back out or zoom back out. I also I kind of want to I kind of want to make the height of the hero image be a little more fixed. Well, I guess it is kind of fixed. Well, but it's a, didn't I do, right here. Height 66 VH, which just makes it entirely dependent on the overall height of the window. So from this view, just doing this, it kind of, I forget that this is still really dynamic, but I'm looking at it in a very much fixed, controlled environment. And I really want to put like a pixel value on this height to like, I really want to control it, which I think is just fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So how does our mock-up look like? So there's a lot of space in between the text area. There's not a lot of space between the bottom of this container. I would say there's a little more space up here. I think if I was doing a design like this today, I would pay more attention to those details. But I kind of like how the submit button is sort of in its own little area down here, and the form inputs themselves are clearly over top of this image. I like that. So in order to control that, I'm really going to have to put a fixed height on the hero image, but I think I'm fine with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because that's all you need is a couple of media queries to take, to make it responsive. It's okay, right? So, so let's say I want the height to be, I'm just going to throw out some values here. Okay, that's definitely not enough. That's definitely too much. Maybe we want to do this in rems. Where's my calculator? Pixels are so pesky. Let's see here. Okay, well, we know that 75 rems is 1200. We know that 1000 is too much. We know that 500 pixels isn't enough. That's 31.25. So let's try 60 rems. 48 rems. What is that in pixels? 768. I love that number. 768. 48 rems. So it moves a little bit here, but we haven't done any responsive styles yet for the form. I like it for the inner hero. I like this. So let's set this as our height for this container. And then we just write a couple of media queries for responsiveness. There isn't anything wrong with that. Not a gosh darn thing. And then I get this separation that I like right here. Well, hang on. And even moving the window around right here and just reshaping it, I still get that separation that I like. I still control where this line is. I like that. I want that. So that is a good choice. I do think that, I mean, I don't know. I have fuzz on my screen. I mean, we're definitely true to the mock-up. There's a little less space here. There's a little more space here. There's a lot of space here. I think I'm just gonna let it be. I'm just gonna let it be. It is what it is. But let's add some more padding here. I also think that this dark gray background is a little too, what did I do? What? F2, F2, F2. I'm gonna change the F2s to F8s because I just want it to be a little lighter. F8, F8, F8. Yeah, that's a little more subtle. I need it to be a little more subtle. It's a little more cool toned also against this blue, right? Gray can be, so I think gray can be really nice and warm, or it can be nice and cool. So I think a great example of a warm toned gray is what we did here. This kind of looks beigey creamy, but really it's just a warm gray. This is a very warm gray. But it suits it, especially against this teal, which to me, teal can also, greens and blues can obviously lean cool. But to me, these undertones are all very warm. And I don't normally like warm tones. I am normally a cool toned type of gal. And the F2 was a little too warm. This F8, I think, is very nice and cool against this green, or excuse me, against this blue. So it just looks better. Let's add a little more padding. Let's add a little more padding. So we put in our section class here to get the padding, and now we're just going to disregard it. So I'm going to leave the section class there, even though I'm about to override it. We have 8 on the parent, on the sibling immediately preceding it, which I don't think we need 8. 3 is not enough. Let's try 6 rems on the top and bottom. We'll keep that 1 rem of padding on the left and right. Much better. Much better. What do we think? I actually think, I mean, do we want to reduce some of this down here? Yeah, just a tiny bit. So we still have 8 on the top to push it down from the top, but 6 on the bottom. What else? I feel like there's something else going on here. No. Yeah, let's just... Yeah, I like it. What do we think? I really like it. Okay, let's make sure that our contact form is responsive. So we used, what did we use here? Here's our form. So we have a div where we're using grid for our inputs, and then immediately after the div, we have our text area and we have our button. So really, we're just changing this to inputs class for these 2 inputs. We're just doing a media query for them. So Where does this start to change? Right at 1024. So here's the two inputs right here. So we don't need this. Let's go ahead and do 1 FR Oh, and we still have some, we just have to override our width. So we're going to say why did I do this? Are these the styles that I wrote when we did the subscription form? Because we're going to work on that next. So let's change the gap to 1 rem, and we're going to change the margin to 1 rem. Yeah, I feel like I didn't do a good job working on this at all. I don't think I did a good job working on this subscription form. I think I must have done, what don't you like here? An element doesn't have an autocomplete attribute. Okay, we'll add autocompletes. I think I must have put, so the subscribe, yeah, because I was using align content center with 100% height auto, and I did aspect ratio in the parent. And then display flex, flex wrap, align content, took this form and aligned it in the center vertically on the y-axis. And one of the cool things about doing it that way is then this, the form, the thing that's being centered, you don't really have to define a width for. The container is just like as big as the content inside the container. Inputs by default are display inline block. They're super flexible. You can give them any kind of width. What is their default width here? So here's the user agent style sheet for an input. Does it even have a width? Display inline block, which we changed, doesn't even really have a width. So we gave it a width of 600 pixels, a max width of 100%, and that was for the media query at 1024. Which means that all form styles got those styles. Which isn't really the end of the world, but now I have to override that for the contact form. That feels like the wrong approach. So, okay, well, I'm not going to redo it, and I'm not going to spend any more time overthinking my bad approach. So I'm just going to write a media query that takes care of these, and I'm going to move on and make a mental note not to do this in the next project. So this is part of, let's just talk for a second about the benefit of starting and finishing multiple projects. This is actually one of the benefits of doing this. And I'm so glad that I stumbled across these two designs and started to do like this sort of multi-page layout, because I'm usually just doing like one-page landing pages or one-page websites. Doing multi-page sites is reminding me like, oh, you have to account for all these different situations, multiple pages, multiple layouts, but still keep things structured and modular, right? So I'm glad that I'm doing this, and I'm glad that I'm doing this. I mean, I'm glad that I'm doing it in public, and I'm glad that I have like this dedicated space, because I'm starting and finishing so many projects, more than I have ever started and finished in my entire career, just in a year and a half of streaming. And it is forcing me to iterate very quickly and come up with a system and a process. And I just hadn't done it this much before. I mean, maybe in my freelancing days I did, but even in my freelancing days, I don't think I didn't start and stop this many projects. I didn't average a full client build once a month. That's insane. That's really fast. So I'm just sort of sitting here reflecting on the fact that practice is so important. You don't need to have it all laid out, and you don't have to figure it all out every time you start a project. Embrace this part of your project. Screw up, make mistakes, do it wrong. Do it in a way that makes it such a pain in the ass to keep going, because that's how you learn and you iterate and you come up with good systems. So, and even me being 12 and a half years, almost 13 years into my career, I'm still going through this. And that's because I'm willing to iterate, right? I'm willing to recognize when I like wildly misjudge something, even something as simple as form styles. So, okay. Yeah, I'm just going to say 2 inputs. And then input, and I guess I'm going to have to specify the type. Type text and type email. And we're going to have to make sure those are just with the 100%. So she's going to be messy. Okay, and then our button type submit. We got to fix that too. Yeah, because it's also inheriting these styles. And it's also got the transform. So we just have to, I think we can just say transform none. Well, no, actually, it's really the margin that is screwing up the transform. I think all we need to do is so it doesn't even need this margin, but it still needs the margin on the left in the media query. Honestly, this makes me feel like I should just take button type submit out of this media query. Oh, I did a terrible job. I did not do a good job thinking this through. This is not normally the approach that I take to forms. Should I just take out the button type submit of this out of this media query? I think that I will. It's probably display inline block. And we do need to change it to display block, but we'll give it its own style. So this can still be display block. We'll just say width 100%. And we'll say, let's just say margin 0. And we'll take the transform none. There. This does not have a border on it. You can tell. Can you tell that it's like just oh so slightly smaller? So and also it needs a border here anyways. So let's add a border, and I actually think this will be nearly fixed. This has a border. And then this doesn't look quite right against the white background. Do we want to add like a gray border to these inputs? Would that help? So we have a 1 pixel border already. I mean, maybe we want to add. I mean, are we even accessible if we don't have a better border? Do we need to add a blue border? I do like that. What I can't even remember. What is the color contrast checker? So if we have a white background, I cannot remember. Okay, so that color does pass for graphical objects and user interface components. So let's give that so should we just give this a nice border? Nice blue border? I think we have to. I think we have to. And then that kind of takes care of our... Now we know it's accessible. Although I'll say this, there isn't really anything unique about the focus state if we have a blue border. They kind of look identical, don't they? Does it need to be something else? What was the verdict on this green? That passes. I like the green, actually. Do we think this is distinct enough? Yeah, I do. What do we think? I'm going to stick with green. We could also do this gray. Let's try it. This was the dark gray. Same color gray. So let's see if this is... Also passes for accessibility. Oops. I think I like the gray. I don't know. What do you guys think? I could go gray or green. Either one would be fine. I kind of like the green. Green looks fine. Malik likes the green. Yeah, let's go with the green. Monique says gray. Monique says gray. Oh. Okay, I'm going to go with the gray. Okay, gray it is. I'm sticking with gray. Gray would be good for consistency. Green would be for a slight pop of color. I'm not good at adding these pops of color. I always say that I'm going to, and then I end up never doing it. So, okay, so here's our main form styles. Now we obviously have to fix what's going on down here. So that is fine. So where's our subscription, subscribe inputs? I'm going to say border, color. This still needs to be white for the subscription form. There we go. And then why did I do all of the majority of my form styles I did? I was trying so hard to keep them separate from the subscription form, but I did all of these layout styles for the forms and let them apply to the subscription form. I don't know why I did that. So it makes me kind of want to, where's the media query here? Right here. So I feel like this should be specific to the subscription form. So I think that we need to do another media query just for the subscription form. And then we can fix this, and I think that will solve the problem. Yeah, look at, I have like one. We don't need these. We'll make those a little more specific. I think that we don't need this because that will already be on the parent. I think we do need these. Okay, I think I'm fixing this mistake. And then We don't need this. We just say width 100%. And then we don't need this anymore because we fixed that. I think I fixed this. We still have some spacing here to deal with, but we'll tighten up that spacing. Layout wise, it's fine. Okay, now we need to tighten this up. So here's our form. Okay, so I was letting these inputs just be like organically display inline block. Clearly, we need to line these up. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then, yeah. Ironically, they're fine on mobile. They're defined enough on mobile. Oh, and we lost our border again. Okay, we'll fix that too. So the form right here, let's just do, I think we should just do grid for the form. Forms. I don't think I have any styles for the subscription form. Subscribe, secondary heading, inputs, nothing for the form. So let's just do display grid. Kind of makes it seem like okay, we'll see how this goes. Display grid, grid, template columns. Well, okay, how do we want to do this? Because I want the inputs to be a little wider. Is this going to, and is it going to work to use grid inside of an element that's being controlled by Flexbox? Is that even going to work? Or do we just want to use Flexbox again? We'll try grid. So I would do 2FR, 2FR, 1FR. Is that right? That might work. Yeah, actually this is going to be perfect. Gap, 1 rem. That button still needs a border. So we're just going to do border, 2 pixels, solid white. Okay, did I not get this in the right place? Subscribe. Oh, wrong. Yeah, this is the wrong. Right here. Okay, there we go. And I think we can tighten up this gap. Oh yeah, what do we think? I love it. just going to need a little, we just need to write a media query here for this. So, I don't think we're going to need these anymore, but I'm not sure. So let's add our media query here. Also 632, that was awfully specific. We've changed our approach. So let's try 768. Grid template columns, 1 FR. There we go. Yeah, I don't think we need these anymore. And then let's change the gap. The gap right now is 0.5. I think we can tighten that up. Oh, there's what else? Oh, you know what? It still needs to be, the inputs still need to be just, no, they are. Oh, we just need to take off the margin. 455. I don't know. This is starting to feel a little bit like a shit show, but it's also kind of real life. So yeah. Okay, that's 591. There. That looks right to me. Okay, this was a much better approach. So this, the way I got this form centered into this area, I personally love this approach, where on the parent, I do display flex wrap, align content center, and then align content center centers it vertically, so the y-axis. And then the form, I can go ahead and center, you know, margin 0 auto, give it a max width, easy peasy, right? And then it's got a container, so it knows how wide it needs to be, so I can still do display grid. So if we took out the max width, margin 0 auto, is there still like something holding that in? Still kind of holding it in, which I think is interesting, because there isn't anything like really, I would expect this to go all the way to the edges by taking this max width off. But I don't see any place else where it's like defined. That's interesting to me, so I'm not sure about that. I'm not going to question it anymore. So, because I'm happy with how things look. What's the one last thing that I want to do? So 555, I'm trying to get this right. So I think that I don't need to change this here if I make sure that I have this right. Yeah. All right, I'm happy with this. I like it. Okay, so what other tightening up do we need to do here on this page? So here's 960, which is where we change the heading from position fixed to scrolling. So scrolling puts it back in the flow, which means we don't need this much padding anymore to push it down. So it's really this right here where we don't need all that padding. So we need to think about, so this is interesting because the section padding, section class section is 3 rems on the top and bottom, 1 rem on the left and right. But I specifically gave this section also a class of contact because it's the contact form. However, our inner pages have that same container. And they're not a contact form. So, if we take off that padding, see, taking, going back to the section padding specifically for mobile basically fixes this. But we need this padding for this container on pages. This is basically an inner page, right? But we don't want that padding for every section. We just want it for the inner main page section. So calling this contact may not be the best approach. Maybe this needs to be like page. How specific are styles using the word contact? Okay, so there's padding, which doesn't have anything to do with the contact form. Here's the contact wrap, where we have, again, padding, a background color, and a box shadow. Nothing to do with the contact form. Then we have contact form max with 50 rems. So this is where we're basically where is it here? So here's where we have a form with a class of form. And we gave it a max width of 50 rems. I'm sure I declined to use the class wrap because that's 75 rems and I wanted to pull that in. Okay, totally specific to the form. And then we've got 2 inputs specific to the form. Contact text area specific to the form. I would say that this could be form text area, right? Because text area is a child of form. 2 inputs specific. Contact form. So really, these two things right here are page styles. They are not specifically contact styles, right? So maybe this class needs to be page. And then these would be page styles. And then this is for the page. This is for the page. And now our form specific to a page. Right? Now moving forward, we have a structure section with the class of section and a class of page to represent inner pages. That's exactly how a template would work. In any CMS, not just WordPress, in any CMS, you would have modular sections or entire templates to represent content that specifically goes onto a page with a structure to support that. What about for our blogs? And the blogs are totally different. So I would imagine that we would have something similar, but instead of the word page, we would use the word blog. And then we would do styles specific to that. So if you're thinking to yourself like, oh, when you build static, you can't really do things in a way that's like modular or component based. Yeah, you can. It's just not the same. It's just not the same as if you were literally working with a framework like React or Angular or Vue. It's a different kind of modular thinking when it comes to CSS and your class names. You're just doing it in a different way and maybe even a different order. So, and Malik is talking to Monique Robinson, but I am going to inject myself into the conversation. Malik is asking Monique, I need you to use your veto vote for me and suggest some more border radius. I already used mine on the images. Good luck. Good luck. Monique's on my side. I'm pretty sure. Team Akib says, I wanted to ask if you had a chance to review my Figma design layout, which I sent to your Instagram. I have not looked at it yet. I'm so sorry. I just have not looked at it yet. I am committed to looking before tomorrow's stream. I thought, and I actually did think of it this morning, and I just was busy doing something else. I will look before tomorrow, and I'm sure it's going to be lovely. I'm sure it's going to be lovely. So Monique's laughing. I don't know what that means. I don't know who she's... See, now I don't know. Whose side are you on, Monique? Are you on my side or are you on the dark side? I literally don't know. So... Okay, I hope all of this makes sense. I think it makes sense. It makes sense in my mind. So let's check and make sure we didn't break anything. Yeah, I don't think we broke anything. So here's now our page. So doesn't it make so much more sense now that we would write media queries for our page style instead of the contact form style? And then we could literally copy this page exactly to make the page. And then all we do is take out the form and put in content and everything else is done, right? So let's write a media query. I don't even think we have a media query for the section styles, but let's check. So here's our generic section styles. Padding 3 rems on the top and bottom, 1 rem on the left and right. No specific media query for that. So let's go back down to page. And let's go ahead and write a media query. And I'm going to do it at 960. So we'll do max width, 960 pixels. And I'm just going to go back and do padding, we're just going to kind of reset it back to what it is. Whoops. Page. Padding, 3 rems on the top and bottom, 1 rem on the left and right. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. And you know what? Here's the thing. I am totally open to additional adjustments, especially once we really start looking at this on mobile. But let's make the same adjustment here to our sides, which we have a lot of padding here, so we can for sure reduce that. So perfect. We're going to do this right here. I'll just do 3 rems on the top and bottom, 1 rem on the left and right. Yeah, that looks great. Now let's adjust the height of our inner hero right here. So maybe we're kind of using 960 here. So here's 960. So there's 33. Let's do 30 rems. And I'm actually going to say that well, let's do one thing at a time. So here's 48. Do media query here. The inner hero. Height. I'm going to do 30 rems. I do feel like maybe we could even take this down a little bit more. So maybe this is just 1 rem. Yeah. 487. Same here. Oh, we do need the extra padding here. Yeah, that looks great though. I love it. So now what about all this extra space around the form? Well, really it's the wrap. The page wrap. I think 1.5 rems looks pretty good here. I kind of feel like this could be clamped right here, right? So the page wrap padding, let's clamp that. What is that, line 480? Sometimes I like to use a media query. Sometimes I like to clamp it. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way. I think you just do whatever works. So I know I want it to be 3 rems on desktop. I want it to be 1.5 rems on mobile. So I'm going to go with 4 VW as that in between. And let's see how that works. Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. I love it. Now let's adjust what's going on here underneath this H1. There's a lot happening here. So we've got, I kind of feel like we could So this is the primary heading. The primary heading is important. So let's do a couple of things here for mobile. I honestly just want to change it from display inline block to display block. That I don't know if that matters though. So maybe once everything changes, so here's 768. I kind of want to make this change here. So the primary heading, what are we going to do differently here? So let's just take all of this, copy it, and we're in kind of our global section here. We haven't really written any media queries to support our global section, so no time like the present. 768 pixels. So if you're really, I do get questions, or I mean, maybe I haven't recently, but I have in the past gotten questions just about how to, the approach to take for doing a responsive design. This is it. You kind of, it looks a little tedious, it looks a little fussy, but this is literally how you do it. You just move the browser back and forth. Now, other developers have different approaches. I have worked with people who had a pretty, I call it rigid approach, to where they had a prescribed set of breakpoints that they used and they did not deviate from that. I don't think that's a good approach. I don't think that's flexible. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking it's a few minutes. Just take a few minutes, move your browser back and forth and observe what's happening. I do tend to stick with breakpoints like 768, 960, 1024, which are kind of old school iPad sizes, right? But I'm still willing to use a breakpoint that I think supports the design, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I personally think that it is a better approach, and it will make you a little bit of a stronger UI builder if you are willing to take a few minutes and do it this way. Just take a top to bottom, left to right approach. Look at each element and say, is this doing what I want it to do? I honestly think that that is the best approach. Oh, one moment, hold please. Oh, good. Monique is on my side. I love it. I like having people on my side. It doesn't happen very often. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so the primary heading, what do I want to have happen here? So I think that I just want to change the margin. I'm just going to say 0 top, 0 left and right, 1 rem on the bottom. I think I'm going to change it from display inline to display inline block to display block. I'm going to change the padding to 1 rem on the bottom. I'm going to say transform none. I'm going to keep everything else, which means I don't need them for the media query. So I'm just like reverse engineering basically. And the only thing that I need to do is text align center. There we go. I want to start this a little later. I don't want to do it this soon. What if we do this at 600? Yeah, I like it. And you know, we'll get a very good sense for how this is all working on mobile, because I think we have all experienced it together many times where we feel like we have something really locked in the browser, and then as soon as we see it on our phones, we're like, ooh, actually, we need to adjust this. But I think this is such a good start. I think this is a great start. Okay, let's go ahead. So we have about 15-ish minutes left. I really don't want to do the JavaScript stuff for the menu right now, because that just takes me such a long time. Even though I've done it a million times and I'm basically going to look at exactly what I've already done the last 25 times, I just don't want to do that right now. So let's go ahead and create our inner page structure. Let's make sure that this actually holds up for an actual inner page. And then tomorrow morning, we will do the JavaScript first thing in the morning. Yeah, we'll do the JavaScript first thing in the morning, and then we will also review our QA list and talk about what we've done and what we still need to do. So, what do I want to do here? So this is the contact page. I kind of just want to take everything in main, just like this, and go over to the page. And swap it out. And then here's the form, which we obviously don't need a form. So let's call this the page template. And then we'll put in some lorem ipsum. So we have a little work to do on the inner pages, which, maybe yeah, we have a little work here to do. Maybe this was too restrictive, how I styled this. But you get the gist. This page now, the inner pages, I mean, if all we need to do is adjust how we're dealing with these page templates, we may also want to give this a little more opacity because of this text against this right here. So right now our background color is maybe want to just bump this up a little bit to 85. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. 490. Yeah, that was a good change. So hopefully this gives you a good sense of how you can absolutely build vanilla, framework free, library free, and still be modular component based. You absolutely can. Let's go ahead and push this up to GitHub. And we can definitely take a peek on mobile and see how this is looking. Styles for the inner pages and forms. All right. Oops. All right, and give me just a moment here. I'm going to grab my phone and plug it in and we will check mobile. Okay. All right. Let's see here. All right. And we haven't done our navigation yet, so I can't change pages. So let's just see if we can do this. I think it's just contact. There we go. That does not look too bad, does it? I like it. You can't see there's some detail that just doesn't come through on OBS when I share my phone. The text shadow is there. Let's make sure here that you guys can look if you want to. So I'll go ahead and put the link to the GitHub page in the chat. So if you want to take a look, you can. So some of the detail isn't quite there, but I think this looks great. Why do we have all this? It's happening down at the bottom there. Is that just my phone doing that? Why do we have that big gap down there? I don't know. Is this just something with my phone? I don't know. We'll have to check that out. But I think this looks good. Big Chill is here. Hello. And is asking, can you tell me about yourself? Well, I mean, are we like in a personal conversation? Like, are we on a date? Is this a job interview? Let's see here. Hi, ma'am. I'm a new subscriber. May I ask you whether using AI like augment for front end is bad. Could you please share your opinion with me? I never get enough time for front end as I am a full stack developer. I think AI is great. It has completely changed the way that I work. I use AI quite a bit. I feel like I don't use AI as much as I used to in my streams, but I absolutely I absolutely do use AI. I tend to use it more as like a strategy type thing, right? Like a strategy tool. So I think it's completely changed the way I work, right? So 10 years ago, I would spend hours scouring the internet, looking at Stack Overflow, reading documentation, and I still think that those things are important. That's basic troubleshooting and basic problem solving. But AI is a tool that is going to make us faster, more efficient. Employers are going to expect us to be able to do more quicker, cleaner. And that is not a bad thing. It's kind of like the Industrial Revolution where we had new tools and we were expected to work a little faster, a little harder, a little cleaner. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's technology, that's innovation. I worry about front-end developers or any kind of developer who really rely on AI to help them with their work. And I say that as somebody who was so profoundly happy to have that as a tool because I could do so much more at work than I was able to. My boss loved it. I loved it. But what I don't love is losing basic problem solving skills. That's all. I just worry about losing basic problem solving skills. And I want new developers to have those skills like I do. So I hope that makes sense. I think AI is great. I absolutely do not think it is anywhere near being able to take over for developers. People who say that don't understand what it is that we really do. So treat it like a tool, but don't lose your ability to solve problems. Don't stay curious, want to learn new things. That's it. That's my main point. So, I just found your channel today. I love it. I will surely bring more support. Well, thank you. Sorry, I don't want to offend you. I'm new here to what you do. You're not offending me. I just thought it was a funny question. I am a front-end developer and a software engineer, and on this channel, we just do vanilla. We build UIs. I personally love vanilla. I've been a front-end developer for 12 and a half years, almost 13 years. I personally have worked in Vue and I've done a little bit in Angular, but I just decided to do a YouTube channel focused on vanilla because I think there are tons of new developers especially that don't have those skills, and I think that they're still really important. So that's what we do here is we just build vanilla. I personally would like to be a little bit better at JavaScript. I say that every year, and every year I get a teeny tiny bit better, but my strength is really building UIs. So that's what we do here. So hopefully if you like that, you want to stick around. And then I myself am a mean stack developer. In my first project, I used HTML, CSS, and JavaScript for front end, but more for beautification. I added augment for like animations and all, but after I felt bad. You know what? That's actually a fair feeling. I have also had moments where I was like, wow, AI like really helped me get this figured out. But I also felt like I was just copying and pasting. But here's the thing. I never once spent hours scouring Stack Overflow only to find the answer and feel bad about it. Because believe me, there were plenty of times where I found a random answer online, Stack Overflow, a Medium article, some random place, and it worked. I didn't 100% understand it, except that I knew that it worked and it solved my problem. I never felt bad then. I just said, well, that works. I'm not quite sure why, but I don't care because I'm just so happy my problem is solved. AI does it a lot faster, and it's easy to feel a little bit bad, like you didn't pay your dues, with all the searching and all the Googling, right? And I have a little bit of trouble reconciling those feelings too. And but the thing also is when you're in a job and you're in a crunch and you have your boss breathing down your neck, or your senior dev or your tech lead or your whoever, you're just so freaking happy that you got the answer and that actually works. Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. Just stay curious, build stuff, learn stuff. Decide to work on a project. How's this? How's this? Decide to work on a project and set a goal to not use AI. Set a goal to only read the documentation. And if you have a desire to get better at building UIs, do this. Only read MDN. If you want to get better at vanilla, this is just an example. Set a goal to do a vanilla project, everything vanilla CSS, and cut yourself off from AI and only read the documentation. Do it. These are the ways that you learn and you get better. Don't feel bad about using AI, especially in a workplace setting where you are under a tremendous amount of stress and pressure to get things done and built. It's an excellent tool, and those are exactly the situations you should be using them in. But if you want to still understand and learn, do it. You can still set yourself up and do these projects and set these goals. So, and let me see here. Are pseudo elements useful? I'm not sure what the question is. Let me know. Clarify this question for me. You're asking about pseudo elements are useful. I'm not sure what that means. Oh, or are they useful? Are pseudo elements useful? Yeah, pseudo elements are totally useful. We love pseudo elements here. There's pseudo elements and there's pseudo classes. So I think a lot of people kind of give it a blanket term of pseudo selector, which that's not an official term, pseudo selector, but there's pseudo classes and pseudo elements. I actually made a video that nobody watched, no pressure or anything. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. But I did make a video on my channel about pseudo selectors, CSS pseudo classes versus pseudo elements. What's the difference? So if you're curious about the difference and why you use one over the other, one is a state and one is a child. And I think they're very interesting. And they're super, super helpful. So I totally agree. I do leak codes every day not to lose touch. Well, bless your heart. Leak code is a soul-sucking experience, I think. Once again, thank you for all your insights. I will try to be in all of your lives. Well, you're welcome. I go live 4 days a week. I'm here Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. And this is what we do. We just build vanilla and we chill and we just enjoy one another's company. I don't know. I'm trying not to sound too corny. And we just try to learn together. It's really, I started the channel because I just needed some dedicated practice time. That's really what this was all about. Dedicated practice time. Maybe possibly meeting some other people who also liked front end. So there's that. Okay. So tomorrow, the first thing we're going to do tomorrow is finish off our header. And then let's make sure, our page is basically done, right? Our page is basically done. So let's see where we went wrong with this header approach. Because I think it's reasonable to expect that a page could have 2 words in its title, right? And we want to make sure that we're supporting different, we need to be able to support several words as a page title and not have it look weird, right? So what that might mean, is then that we use a pseudo element for our border and we allow this to continue being full width, but just text align center. That might be the better way to approach that. So we'll do that tomorrow, and then our page is basically done. Everything else is done. Oh, what we do need to do is we need to wire up our contact form. So we're going to use Form Spring. We're going to set up another contact form. So we'll do that tomorrow as well. And then we'll go through our QA list, and let's make a final list of the things that we want to do versus the things that we are not going to do, because it's a wish list. It's not a commitment list. That's how I'm looking at this. So we'll do that tomorrow. And then we'll get ready for this next week, because we have a lot more stuff to do, especially with these blog posts and doing some of these like sharing buttons and things. That'll be fun. That's not terribly difficult to do with JavaScript, so we should be able to do that. So Malik says, good work as usual. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Memory clips. Our friend from Turkey. I sometimes join late the live stream, but every second I learn something amazing with a new perspective. Thank you. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's a bit hard to follow your time as I'm from Kerala in India, but I will try my best. Well, listen, you can always watch the replay, and you are always welcome here while the stream is live, obviously, of course. So, everybody, thank you so much. I appreciate you all. Have a great rest of your day wherever you are. I will see you tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, and we will continue then. Bye-bye.